You walk into a chair. You say sorry to it. Someone bumps into you in the street, and the word leaves your mouth before theirs does. You start emails with "sorry to bother you," even when the other person is literally paid to read them. You apologize for asking questions, for having opinions, for taking up space in rooms you were invited into. At some point, sorry stopped meaning I did something wrong. It started meaning, please don't be upset with me for existing. And that difference is the whole psychology of over-apologizing. 3 things in this video. The exact neuroscience of why your brain reaches for sorry the way other people reach for hello. The hidden mechanism that has nothing to do with manners. And the honest split between 2 completely different reasons people over-apologize that look identical from outside. Same word, opposite psychology. First, the most important reframe of this entire video. Because most chronic over-apologizers carry quiet shame about it, and the shame is built on a misunderstanding. You're not apologizing for the things you've done. You're apologizing for the possibility of becoming a problem. Those are not the same thing, and your nervous system has always known the difference, even when you haven't. In anxiety research, this kind of pattern has a specific name. A safety behavior. Psychologist Paul Salkovskis at the University of Oxford helped define how safety behaviors keep anxiety alive. A safety behavior is an action you take to prevent a perceived catastrophe, usually one that was never actually going to happen. When you say sorry, you aren't acknowledging a mistake. You're preemptively diffusing a conflict that exists only in your nervous system's forecast. Your brain has tagged being a problem to someone else as a genuine threat. Apologizing is your nervous system's airbag, deployed before the crash, just in case there was going to be one. Now here's where the science gets uncomfortable. Because to understand why this happens, you have to know what social rejection actually does to the human brain. In 2003, neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA ran fMRI scans on people experiencing social rejection. She found something remarkable. The brain processes social pain through the same neural pathways as physical pain. Being disliked doesn't just feel bad. It registers in your nervous system as injury, which means if you grew up in an environment where disapproval was frequent, critical parents, volatile households, conditional affection, your amygdala learned something specific. Other people's displeasure is a survival threat. So your nervous system built a tool, a word you can deploy faster than thought that consistently reduces the threat. Sorry. And it worked. It kept you safe back then. Hit subscribe if any of this is hitting closer than you expected. The next layer is the one most people never realize. And then comes the apology high. Because there's a real neurochemical reason saying sorry is so hard to stop. When you anticipate conflict, cortisol and adrenaline spike. You enter a mild state of fight or flight. The moment you say sorry and the other person nods or smiles, the threat is cleared. Cortisol drops. Dopamine releases. Your brain just learned a lesson. Blaming myself makes the danger go away. Relief becomes the reward. The reward reinforces the pattern. The pattern repeats. You're not failing at confidence. You're being conditioned by your own neurochemistry to repeat the only move that reliably stops the rising tide of social threat detection. This is where childhood enters. Because almost nobody is born apologizing for bumping into furniture. Most chronic over-apologizers grew up in environments where keeping the peace wasn't just polite, it was protective. Maybe a parent was unpredictable. Maybe one wrong tone could change the temperature of an entire evening. A child in that environment learns one survival skill above all others. Scan the room. Catch the shift early. Apologize before anyone has to ask for it. Make yourself smaller than the threat. You weren't being polite, you were being safe. And the way you were safe was by being quietly responsible for the emotional weather of the adults around you. 20 years later, the adults are gone. The room is safe. But the system that protected you is still running. You're still scanning, still apologizing, still being responsible for emotional weather that isn't yours. And then comes the cost, because there is one, and it's accumulating quietly in places you might not have named yet. Every unnecessary apology sends a micro signal to your own subconscious. I might be doing something wrong right now. My presence might be a problem. My needs might be too much. You're not just managing how others perceive you. You're actively training yourself to perceive yourself as someone who requires a permission slip to exist. Over years, that wiring rewrites your self-concept. The apology stops being communication. It becomes self-erasure, repeated quietly 10 or 20 times a day. And here's the harder part. The world often reads your over-apologizing not as kindness, but as low confidence. The behavior designed to protect you in childhood now invites the exact treatment in adulthood that you've been afraid of. A gentle observation before the split, not an attack. Many over-apologizers have never been taught how to take up space without softening themselves. They were taught to be polite. Nobody taught them they were allowed to be present. So instead of saying, "I need help," they say, "Sorry to bother you." But instead of "I disagree," they say, "Sorry, this might sound stupid, but..." The apology becomes emotional cushioning, a way to make their own needs feel less threatening to other people. Healthy relationships do not require you to shrink in order to be accepted. But your nervous system doesn't know that yet because the relationships that built your wiring weren't healthy ones. Here's the split that matters. Because two completely different people say sorry constantly. They look identical. They're not. The first type is empathic apologizing. You have high emotional intelligence. You genuinely notice friction in the room and want everyone to feel okay. The apology comes from care, not fear. After you say it, you feel connected. The second type is fawn apologizing. The word comes out before you've consciously chosen it. It's not about the other person. It's about ending the spike of cortisol in your own chest. After you say it, you feel relief, not connection. Same word, opposite psychology. The test is simple. When the word leaves your mouth, do you feel a soft connection to the person in front of you? Or do you feel a quiet relief that the danger just passed? Connection is empathy. Relief is fawn. Almost everyone watching this is the second type more often than they want to admit. That's not a moral failure. That's a nervous system running ancient survival software in a world that doesn't have the dangers it was built for. There's a line worth carrying with you after this video ends. You don't have to earn the right to be in a room you're already in. Your presence isn't a debt that needs settling every 5 minutes. You're allowed to take up the same amount of space everyone else does, without paying for it in apologies. Before you go, here's one thing to try in the next 24 hours. It's small enough to feel almost silly, but powerful enough to interrupt the pattern. Next time the word sorry rushes to your throat and for something you didn't actually do wrong, swap it for thank you. Sorry I'm late becomes thank you for waiting. Sorry for rambling becomes thank you for listening. Sorry to bother you becomes thank you for your time. Apologies put you in debt. Gratitude lifts the other person up while keeping your own ground level. Watch what shifts in the room and inside your own body when you stop framing your existence as something to apologize for. Come back and tell me in the comments what you noticed. You were not born apologizing for your own presence. Somewhere along the way, your body learned that being small kept things calm. It made sense then. But the rooms you're in now are not the rooms that built you. The people around you didn't sign up to be feared. And you've been paying a tax on existing for so long, you forgot it was optional. You are allowed to stop paying rent in rooms you already belong in. If any of this hit subscribe and like. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people who need to hear it. Tell me in the comments, when you say sorry, do you usually feel connection after or relief? Honest answer.